Hey everyone, welcome. Today we are talking about the conversion code and how to turn every discovery call into a 10K client. So, what if I told you that the reason you're not closing 10K clients has nothing to do with your offer and really everything to do with what you say in the first 5 minutes of your call? So, coaches and consultants all over the world are leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table every single month, not because their service isn't valuable, but because their call strategy is broken. So stick with me until the end of this video, and I'm going to give you my conversation, or I shouldn't say conversation, my conversion code, and the exact framework that I've used to help my clients turn nearly every discovery call into a 10K plus client without feeling pushy, without being manipulative or salesy. And I'm Heather Blaze, in case you don't know. And for over 20 years, since 1996, I've helped business owners, I've been helping coaches and consultants just like you build multi-million dollar businesses without burnout. But it wasn't always like this. I used to dread discovery calls. I mean, dread them. I would just be like so nervous. I had no idea what to say. I would come across being like, wanting people to like me. I'd show up to the call like, hey, how's it going? Because I'm always in such a good mood and always positive. And, some of these people were really struggling. And anyway, I didn't know that you're supposed to, mirror their energy and little things like that. There's little things that when you're doing sales calls are really important. I'd prepare, I'd show up and I'd pour my heart out only to hear something like, "No, I'll think about it," or, "Oh, let me talk to my spouse," or, "I can't afford that." And now, so I know exactly how frustrating it feels to deliver amazing value, but still walk away empty handed. And that's why I created the conversion code, a simple, repeatable framework that helps you effortlessly enroll high ticket clients without sounding like a used car salesperson. So here's what we're going to be diving into today. The step one is the mindset shift that separates coaches closing 10K clients from those struggling at 1K. Step two is going to be the 5-part conversion code framework that guides your prospect from curious to committed. And stick around to the very end because I'm going to be sharing a bonus strategy that helped one of my clients close 10K 10K clients in a single week. And even though she'd never sold anything over 1,500 before. So let's dive in. So for the first step, let's talk about the mindset shift, and let's just slow down for a second and name the real fear under most discovery calls. Okay. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be, manipulative. I don't want to be salesy, sleazy, cheesy, all that kind of stuff, right? Because that's kind of what you think of when you think of sales, or that's how I used to think of it before I transitioned into this new way of thinking, selling from service. And the irony is that the more you try not to sell, the more you over explain, you over teach, and accidentally overwhelm the other person. And overwhelm creates indecision, and indecision turns into, I'll think about it, or let me talk to my spouse, or I can't afford that. Those are like the top excuses of why people don't follow through in the sale. They don't enroll. So here's the first shift. You're not there to convince. Okay. I get on a lot of calls and a lot of people say, I just don't know how to convince people. I'm like, well, you're not even there to convince. You're not there to convince people. You're there to lead. You're there to lead people. You want to think of yourself less like a salesperson and more like a specialist surgeon. Okay. A great surgeon doesn't beg somebody to operate on them, right? They diagnose, they prescribe, and they lead the patient to the right decision with calm certainty. And that's what your best prospects are actually paying for. They want certainty and a clear path. And so what this looks like on a call is maybe before you said something like, "Oh, thanks for hopping on. So let me tell you about my program. It's 12 weeks. We meet weekly and you get this and you get that. You get access to this portal and all this stuff," right? After you've had this mindset shift, it's more like, "Hey, I'm glad we were able to find a time for you today," or, here's how we're going to use this call. Here's how this call is going to go. I'll ask you a few questions to really understand where you're at, where you are, right? And where you need to be or where you want to be, right? Like what's your current situation? What's your desired situation? And if I'm confident I can help show you how to get from here to here, then I'll show you what that looks like. And if not, I'll just point you in the direction of someone that I might know that can get you there. Sound good? Right? Do you hear the difference? Like it's a little pre-frame. Like you're coming from certainty, you're coming from confidence, you're coming from this doctor frame, I call it, right? So surgeon, doctor, same thing. You don't go to your doctor's office and the doctor's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for booking the time to come in here. And let me tell you about everything about me." No, they don't do that, right? They ask questions to try and figure out like what's really going on. Like, do you have your arm hurts? Okay, well, what does that mean? Do you need a band-aid? Do you need surgery? Something in between, right? They're gonna get curious, concerned. I always say the 3 C's: curious, concerned, and caring. Those are how you should show up to a call, just like a doctor would, right? So that little pre-frame, it does 3 things. It, number one, positions you as the leader. So you're setting up the route, right, up the mountain, or that path, right? Number two, it reduces anxiety because there's a structure to it. And then number three, it builds trust. So because you're willing to say no if it's not a fit, right? You're not there to sell them anything. You don't even know if you have anything to sell. You don't know if they're a good fit, right? They have to actually, how I come in is like, they've got to prove to me that they're a good fit, right? I don't have to prove that I'm a good fit for them. They have to prove to me that they're a good fit for me to help them because I'm the expert. I know what to do. If I can help them, I will show them the way. I will lead the way, right? But if they're not a good fit, I just got off a call a little while ago, and I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure yet if this person's a good fit or not, right? I've been asking a bunch of questions, but I'm not 100% convinced. They haven't convinced me that they're a good fit for me to work with them yet, right? We have one more follow-up call and we'll see. But for now, I'm kind of on the fence about taking this person on as a client. But anyway, let me tell you about Melissa, okay, a leadership coach. She used to start calls by proving her value, sharing her frameworks, telling her stories, walking through slides. And prospects said, "Wow, this is really great." And then just ghosted. So when we reframed her role to diagnose first, then prescribe later, her conversion rate jumped from 10% to 80% in 6 weeks. Why? Because people don't want a fire hose of information. They want a guide who can see the path and then go first, right? So 2 tiny mindset toggles that change everything from closing the sale to facilitating a decision. Okay, your job isn't to force a yes, it's to help them make the right decision confidently. And now, from going from like proving I'm worth it to qualifying if they're ready or qualifying if they're the right fit, right? Not everyone deserves your calendar or your transformation. So that energy is really felt. It really comes across. Like people can feel energy, even if you think that they're not. Sorry, I feel like I have something in my eye. It's itchy. Um, even if you think like you're covering it up or like people can tell when you're authentic. People can tell when you're genuine. People can tell if you're confident or not. People can tell if you're coming from scarcity or if you're coming from abundance, right? If you're desperate for that sale or not, no matter how you mask it. So you need to really authentically come from that place. Make sense? So some common mistakes to drop here really is teaching too much, especially for my coaching. Like I help coaches, consultants, and experts. Mostly like the coaches are constantly teaching. They're coaches. They love to teach, right? So they get on the call and they start teaching. They teach too much, right? All throughout the thing. I always have to pull them back. Like you're teaching, you're not teaching here. You're not selling anything here, right? We're just communicating the value effectively of your value and what you have to offer, right? And a lot of coaches fall into that teaching. So mistake, 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 teaching too much. So if they leave the call full, they're not going to buy, right? Give clarity, not curriculum. You don't want to give them a band-aid that just is going to give them a quick fix and not really fix the whole problem, right? So if you're teaching and then they're like, I'm good, they go and they with their band-aid solution, because you don't have the time to go so deep with them on a 30-minute phone call to actually get them the results they're looking for typically. So so if you're just giving them like a band-aid by giving them these things, they're just going to go and do that, and then it's not going to work, and then they're not going to come back. Does that make sense? You got to lead them in a way that so you can go deep with them to really get them that result that they're looking for. And then the other mistake is defending your price. Okay, you don't want to justify it. You want to contextualize it. Contextualize the investment around the cost of staying stuck where they are. So another mistake too is being agreeable to a fault. So trusted advisors, they challenge assumptions with care. Like they say, I don't really say this. I mean, sometimes they do. They say, can I push back on that a little bit? I don't say those words, but I push back a lot. Like I lean back, I push back, like, why not just keep doing what you're doing then? It seems to be working out okay, right? It's like, that's not a needy thing. Like, not like, oh, well, but, it's like if they say, oh, well, it's going okay. And I don't know, I guess things would just be the same. Like there's no sense of urgency then. It's like, okay, well, why are we even here? Why are we even having this conversation in a way, right? So I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know why they don't have that sense of urgency. Like it sounds like a pretty big problem to me, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know, or they'll like soften it a little bit to cope with the problem because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know how to fix it. So sometimes they'll come in and they'll be softening. I dig really deep. I'm like, how is that affecting you? How's that affecting your day to day? And then how does that impact things, right? So I'll go deep and find out like what's really going on. If they just stay surface level, I'll be like, you know what? It doesn't seem like you really, maybe this is a sometime down the road type of thing. Doesn't sound like you really want to fix this right now. So why don't we circle back? Like, what are you thinking? When do you think this is going to be like a really, like you really want to fix this? Because, what I offer, it's not easy. I make it as simple as possible and I simplify the process as much as possible, but they have to really want to create a business. They really want to have to, offer what they have to offer and build a business around it. And if they're not that, if they're just kind of on the fence about it, I'm not going to take them on as a client anyway. I can go down a rabbit hole with all this. But, anyway, the mindset shift is subtle, but it's seismic. Okay. So you're not chasing, you're choosing. You're not pitching, you're partnering. You're partnering with serious people to solve serious problems. Okay. Let's move on to number 2, which is the 5-part conversion code framework. Okay. This isn't a script to memorize. It's a map. Okay. It's a guide. It's a map. So use it to guide the conversation naturally, like checkpoints on a trail. And here's how each part sounds and why it works so well. So the first checkpoint is pre-frame the call. So you want to set the frame like I did earlier, right? You want to set the frame. It shouldn't take long, 30 to 60 seconds. What it does, the goal of it or like the purpose of it is to lower defenses. It's to create safety, create a safe space, and to position yourself as the leader. So I kind of touched on this like 5 minutes ago, but this is what you're going to say, something like this. So this is how the call is going to go. We can make this valuable. Here's what I suggest. I'll ask a few focus questions to understand where you are. Then I'll reflect what I'm hearing. If I'm confident I can help, I'll outline how that would work. And if not, I'll be honest about that too. And at the end, we'll decide together on the next steps. Does that sound good? Okay, something like that. Or what I usually say is, it's like you've come into my doctor's office and I'm going to ask you a bunch of clarifying questions so I can help understand your current situation and what your desired situation would be. Where do you want to take this business? And I'm kind of like a doctor and a GPS combined. So I'm a doctor of businesses. I'm an expert in business, and I'm like a GPS. I can give you the steps. Once I'm clear on your current situation and your desired situation, I can share the steps that will take you from here to here. And if it sounds like I can help you get there, then we'll talk about if we'd be a good fit to work together. And if we're not, that's okay too. I'll just point you in the direction of someone I might know that can get you there. Right. So I've done so many calls, so it just rolls off pretty easily. But that's my framework. That's what I use, word for word, pretty much. Well, not word for word, because I say it naturally, but it's pretty word for word. And I've said it so many times that I just know it. But that's how I start off every call. I'm setting the tone. I'm setting myself up as the expert. I'm creating that safe space, no pressure. Maybe we'll work together, maybe we won't. But I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions so I can gain clarity, right? So it's like, okay, now they can relax. Now they understand, okay, this is why she's asking me so many like deep questions. Sometimes I got people crying on the phone, okay, because we go really deep to really uncover like what's the root cause of what's really affecting this, and why they're so stuck. And if they've been stuck for a long time and super frustrated and overwhelmed and confused, they can break down, but it's a safe space. So, there's no judgment. It's just like, let's get to the bottom of this so we can fix it once and for all, so we can get you what you ultimately want to do, right? But prospects relax because they know what's coming if you set it up that way. So you've promised clarity, not a pitch, right? Not a sales pitch. So there, it takes all that yuckiness away. So you've also earned the right to ask deeper questions if you set it up the right way. Make sense? So working. Looks like I've got a black screen here, but I don't know. StreamYard's been acting weird. But anyway, let's move on to number two. So number two checkpoint is identify the gap. Okay, identify the gap. So like I was saying, present roadblock, like present with certain situation, what are the roadblocks, and then their desired future situation. So the goal of this is to move from that, surface level chatter, right, to like business truth, like what's really going on, or truth. And it's not necessarily business in my case, but whatever the truth is for what you're offering, right? So you're doing an MRI for their whatever you're helping them with, whether it's a business, their relationship, their health, whatever it is that you help them with. You're not just there for like a casual chat, right? Like what do they want? Why are they there? So like people don't typically book an appointment with a doctor just to go chit chat, right? So you want to ask these three lanes of questions. So what's their present reality looking like? Like what's working right now? What's not? How are, like if you have a business offer, like how are leads coming? How many leads are coming in? How long has that been going on for? What were the last month's numbers, or what's been your revenue? What's your close rate? What's your show up rate? Things like that, right? If it was a health offer, it could be, okay, what's your current weight? How long have you been trying to, what's your desired weight? How long have you been trying to get there? What have you done? What are you currently doing? What have you done that hasn't worked? What have you done that has worked? Things like that. Anyway, and then you can determine what the roadblocks are, right? What's the cost of the problem? What's the cost of not fixing it? You could ask things like, what's the most frustrating thing about this that you haven't figured out? Or if this doesn't change in the next 90 days, what does that cost you? How does that impact you, if anything? And then how does that impact? And you can go deeper and deeper. How's this affecting your time, or your health, or your sleep, or your family, or your team, right? Or your confidence? Like you can ask all these questions to get a really clear understanding. And then once you've got all the understanding of what the roadblocks are, then you go into asking questions about their future, right? What is their desired future outcome? So you can say something like, if we're meeting 90 days from now, what would need to be true for you to feel thrilled, or for you to feel successful? Why is that outcome important now? Why not next year? Why not wait? Why not wait a month? Why not wait, a year? So you want to listen you want to listen for like specifics. You want to be as specific as possible, and you could even use that word, right? How much, let's see, how much do you want to be earning from this business each month specifically, right? Um, or how long has that been going on for specifically? May I say specifically, or you want to get as close as you want to get as specific as possible. Anyway, and and emotion too, right? And then you want to mirror back. So what you heard, you want to use their words, right? So one person might say cool, where another person might say brilliant, right? It's going to resonate differently if you say the same words that they resonate with. So you could say something like, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're booking 8 to 10 calls a month, closing 1 to 2 at 3K, and you want to be at 20K plus months consistently. The block isn't interest, right? It's converting qualified leads without discounting or chasing. Is that right? Right? Like you want to just gain that clarity, mirror back what they said, and say it in like a curious question way, right? So I think you're possibly here might be because you're frustrated, you're feeling confused, right? Whatever they said back to them. And why this works is people buy when they feel understood and heard, right? So mirroring, it builds that trust and it ensures that you're solving the right problems. And they might come back and say, no, that's not right. Then you have that opportunity to, okay, help me really understand then, and get clear, right? So a brand strategist once told me, I have a lead problem, and she actually had a positioning problem. She thought it was the lead problem. After I uncovered it, it was a positioning problem. So she was attracting like DIYers because her messaging screamed designer, not strategic partner, if that makes sense. So once we identified that gap on the call, she finally understood why her conversions and prices were stuck. Okay, makes sense? So let's move on to the third thing, and that's future pace. So you want to make the win feel real. And the goal here is to help them emotionally experience the outcome before you present your solution. So the prompt for this would be something like close your eyes for a second, imagine it's 90 days from now, your calendar has the right calls with the right people, you're quoting your full rate and hearing yes without chasing. Like walk me through a typical week. Like what's different, right? So, and again, you're going to repeat back what they said that they wanted. So, and then just have them, feeling that. So some follow-up anchors actually is like what you could say is like, what changes first? Your revenue, your confidence, or your time? So you could give them some options maybe. And it helps if you've kind of uncovered that before too, like whatever they've said, they probably said this is how it would impact. It would impact their revenue, their confidence, and their time. So which one's most important? So again, you're repeating it back, you're getting that clarity, and then you're saying which one is the top, right? Or you could say like, who notices the difference? Your clients, your team, or your family, right? If they said all those things as well. Or you could say something like, what do you do with those extra 5 hours a week? Right? Because if they said something like that, oh, it would just, if I could automate everything, it would give me at least another 5 hours a week. Okay, cool. What does that look like for you? What do you do with that time? Those extra 5 hours, right? And why this works so well is the brain anchors to felt experiences, right? When they feel that win, they're far more open to the bridge that gets them there. They can visualize it, and it's a lot less energy to have that visualization pull them towards than it is to push, right? Pulling is a lot less effort than pushing. So that's what makes the difference. So, and then let's move on to the fourth thing, which is present the bridge, right? Just imagine that bridge. So offer is tied to their words and tied to that clear path, right? It's that bridge. So the goal here is to connect the gap, their gap, to your method in like this straight line or this bridge, right? So no generic features, no menu of options. You want to structure your bridge like this. So you name the mission, whatever it is, right? Based on what you've shared so far, based on what you've shared throughout our conversation, our mission is simple, right? It's to increase whatever they said. It's to increase qualified calls. I usually pick 3 of their top things, right? It's to increase qualified calls and lift your close rate to 40% plus at your current price point without adding more hours. Okay. So you're just kind of quick thing. Is that right? Yes. Okay, cool. So then we'll say, well, how we do that is we'll do that by tightening your positioning, installing a consistent lead flow, upgrading your call structure, and building a follow-up system that closes that loop. Okay. Then you want to connect to the outcomes that they named. So what that does then is it gets you to that $20,000 plus per month that you wanted, that you described, that frees up your time and frees up your Fridays like you wanted. So you have that 5 hours back. And then you invite the decision, like you invite a decision conversation, right? So invite is the key word here. Do you want me to walk you through how this looks over the next 90 days or however long your program is, right? 12 weeks or eight weeks or whatever it is, right? For you in the next 66 months, whatever. All right. And so why this works so well is it's not a pitch. Do you see that? It's a perception more than a pitch, right? You're mapping out your proven process to their specific pains and goals in their language. Can you see how this shifts from selling like that sleazy, cheesy, whatever thing to leading, right? Leading them into that sale and rolling them into what you can help them with, right? Like it's just so different. It's so different. So when my client Jenna heard this kind of bridge, she literally said, this is the first time someone has explained a path that feels built for me. And she signed right on the spot, right? 8K right on the spot. People don't buy deliverables. They buy confidence in a path. So the next thing then is handling objections, right? You want to handle objections with empathy and you want to do it throughout the conversation. You don't want all these objections at the very end. There's a strategic way that I teach my clients where we're handling the objections along the way. And it's just a natural conversation, right? So we want to normalize, explore, reframe, and decide. Okay, so the goal here is to keep the conversation collaborative. So you're not overcoming them. You're not overcoming the objections, which a lot of sales coaches say, right? You're coaching them through a decision. So common objections and elegant responses that I hear often is, ooh, that's a really big investment, right? Or that's a lot of money, right? And I just repeat it back to them like, it is a lot, that's a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. Totally fair, right? Most people tell me that. But again, right, if nothing else changes in the next 90 days, which I've already asked them, right? What does that realistically cost you again? In revenue and in missed opportunities. And we already established that throughout the conversation by the time I get to this point, right? So I've already asked them that. I already know what they're going to say. Oh, yeah, right. I mean, I even give them a calculator before they even get on the phone so that they can figure it out and they come to me with the number. And I usually say, well, the investment in this is way less than whatever number they came up with for that, which is how much money they've lost, which is usually tens of thousands of dollars, right? So it's a no-brainer, right? How has it cost you in that you said, right? And if it goes on another 90 days, how much is it going to cost you if you don't figure this out, right? So given that, do you want help closing that gap faster, or would you prefer a slower DIY route to figuring it out on your own in a cheaper way, right? So it just positions it where they're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to move forward. Another really common thing I get is I need to think about it. That's a really, really common one. And, of course, yeah, sure. Yeah, of course, it's a big decision, right? And this really matters. So when people say that, it's usually one of three things. So you want to kind of isolate what it is. It's either the timing, the trust, or the cash flow. So which is it for you so I can speak to it directly? Like, what are the things that are coming up for you? And then they'll tell you, and then you have that conversation. Okay. Another one I get is, oh, can I start next month? And I'm always like, yeah, sure, we can align on timing. My only concern is the momentum, right? You said you're losing about 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 a month. So if we wait another 30 days, that's another 6, 8, 10,000 out the door that you're not going to make. Like, would you like a plan that secures your spot now? So, but maybe starts in 2 weeks or can give you some homework to work on. Like, how much time can you find to like squeeze it in so you're not losing that money waiting and waiting, right? And why this works is that you're not steamrolling them, right? You're naming the real constraint. You're anchoring to the cost of inaction and offering options that preserve dignity and really propels decisions. And another one I think I get a lot too is, oh, I need to talk to my spouse. Sometimes they do, if it's especially if it's a big investment. I mean, I used to be married, and I always anything like that was a big, big investment, like 10 grand or something, I would need to talk to him first. Even if I wanted to do it, I would just run it by him and just say, hey, I'm going to be spending 10 grand on this thing. Um, you know, he probably wouldn't be able to talk me out of it or whatever. I usually made the decisions, but some people are in relationships where, well, they might not have the 10 grand. So it's like, okay, where's the 10 grand going to come from? And they have to figure it out and they want their spouse's input, right? Or it could be that they're really not sure about it and it's an excuse, right? For them just to get off the phone and then you never hear from them again. So you really want to clarify this as well, right? So what I'll say usually is, well, first I find out if they've got a spouse like right at the very beginning when I frame the call. So then I know like, hey, before I get into it, as soon as I feel like I've got their like buy-in and I know they do want to, and I'm pretty sure that we'd be a good fit, I will ask, like, do you need to run this by your spouse, or are you the sole decision maker on this? If we were to move forward. And if they say yes, then I say, what I found works best is to have all decision makers on the call together so that we're not only clear about what's happening, the current situation, because like I mentioned earlier, where that one person thought it was, what was it, leads, and it was positioning, right? Things shift on the call. So she might have been talking to her spouse the whole time saying, I need leads, I need leads, I need leads, and then realizes after a call, oh no, it's the positioning. And she's been talking to her spouse about it the whole time because her spouse is like super supportive. So I'll invite them onto a phone call together so we can all make a decision together, and be really clear, not just on the problem, but on the solution as well. Because with what I do, especially, it really involves the spouse too. And if they're super supportive, either way, if they're super supportive, it's great because they're going to need that support throughout the process because it's a big process. And probably with what you're doing too, it's a big process and you're going to want the support of the spouse around it, like especially if it's like a health thing and maybe they're trying to quit smoking and the spouse smokes, you know what I mean? Like things like that, or especially if it's a relationship issue, things like that. You really want to include all the decision makers. So I'll really figure that out up front. And before I get too deep into it, we'll get everybody on the phone so that we can make the best decision for everybody. And that way there's no going away, thinking about it, having them, talk them out of it or whatever, out of their dream that they really want. Because whatever. And then sometimes I'll say something like, what if they say no? What if you go and talk to your spouse and they say no? And then they'll tell me what the plan is, right? I'll say, what's the plan if that happens? Because they'll really want to do it. And or I'll say, okay, cool. What if they say yes? Like you want to kind of know what it is either way and what their plan is for getting started either way. Because if they're if they don't, or I might say, like, do you even really want to do this thing? If I sense that it's just an excuse to get off the phone that they've made. So it's just really figuring it out and having that conversation and really understanding where that person's at. Anyway, I can go deeper and deeper on this, but I'm not going to get into that today. So let's bring it all together, to have just hear how a full flow sounds. Okay, so here's a really quick stitched example so that you can kind of feel the rhythm of the whole thing. So we're going to start with the pre-frame. So here's how we're going to use this time. If it's a fit, I'll show you how I'd help. And if not, I'll tell you that too, right? Identify the gap. Walk me through the last month, calls booked, close rate, price point, what felt most frustrating. If nothing changes in 90 days, what would that cost you? Okay, cool. If we're celebrating in 90 days, what would have changed? That kind of thing. The mirroring, right? So you're at 2 clients per month at 3K. You want 6 at 5K, and the block is inconsistent calls and low conversions, right? Did I get that right? The next thing is that future pace. So imagine it's 90 days from now. What's different about your week and what's different about your bank account, your time? The next thing is that bridge. So great, here's the plan I put in place with you. We'll do positioning, then lead flow, then call structure, then follow up. And that gets you to your 20K months that you mentioned. And then 6 is the objections, if any. Oh, I need to think about it. Totally. Is it a timing, trust, cash flow thing? So I can address the real thing, right? You're going to handle that. Want to secure your spot and map the week, map week 1 out together type of thing. And that's the conversion code. Okay. In motion. So steady, confident, human, authentic, right? And now here's that little, what was it that I called it earlier? Nugget or strategy. Let's just call it a strategy, a little known strategy that skyrocketed my client Emily's conversions. So the power close framework. Okay. Instead of ending the call with, do you want to think about it? We end with a powerful decision framework. So based on everything we've talked about today, do you feel like, and you said that this is the right decision for you? If this is everything, what do I say? If this is exactly what you feel you need, where do you want to go from here? Right? And then they'll tell you, right? So if it's let's move forward, then you lock that in. And if it's an unclarity thing, then you can unpack what's missing. And Emily used this, and within 3 weeks, she went from 0 10K clients to 30K in new sales. So if you're ready to turn every discovery call into a 10K plus client, okay, don't try to reinvent the wheel. What you need to do is join my free masterclass where I'll just walk you through step by step through the exact steps, okay, that my clients go through and what they use to close high ticket clients without feeling pushy. Okay, spots are limited, but grab yours now before we fill up. The link is in the description here. And don't forget to like and subscribe and comment if you like this type of value that I'm offering. Here every Thursday doing a live, and then you can check out all my other videos here on my channel. So today we talked about the conversion code. If you want me to send you my personal call script, as an example, put the comment here, call script, and I will get that out to you. So today we covered the mindset shift, the conversion code framework, and the exact language patterns that you need to turn those icky sales calls, those icky discovery calls into 10K clients with confidence. Remember, the only difference between struggling coaches and 6-figure earners isn't more leads. It's not more leads, okay? It's what happens on the call, and it's the quality, right? So in our next video, I'll share how to attract premium clients who are pre-sold even before they get on a call. And until then, just keep showing up, keep leading, and keep closing with confidence. So hopefully that was helpful, and I will catch you on the next one.